Hello, Global Leadership League, ladies and allies. This is Chris Holloway, and I'm here with Heidi Peterson. And we are so excited to talk about how we can help you amplify your financial prowess, or power, as it were. So welcome, welcome. You can see if you have questions, we'll be having a little time at the end for your questions. And you can type them into the chat box or the question box, and we will answer them for you. So off we go. Welcome, so glad you are here with us today. And a little reminder of who we are at the Global Leadership League. Our mission is to ignite change across the global education landscape by empowering, connecting, and training women leaders. So if that mission excites you, we are for you. I know we have mostly members on this webinar. We know we're hitting a chord because there was about 150 of you who expressed interest, so very exciting. So if this mission is for you, please join us as a member. We do good work, and we have great webinars and other events coming up, which we'll talk to you towards the end of the session today. So the theme that we have this year at the League is Amplify. And that is to increase the power, step up, magnify, boost, or raise. So we're trying to really amplify our power this year and doing a good job so far. I'm your host. I'm a founding board member at the League and run the webinar series here. I also run CIS Abroad, an education abroad organization based in sort of scarily warm Northampton, Massachusetts today. And I'm joined by Heidi Peterson. Heidi, do you want to give a brief introduction to yourself?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. A little bit about me. I have been in financial services for 30 years. I'm a financial advisor. I'm a certified life coach. I'm an attorney by education. I am a single mom with 3 kids, age 17, 15, and 10. And I absolutely love financial education. I love helping people gain confidence in their financial lives.
Thank you. And you just clearly are very non-busy, a single mom of 3 and a financial advisor. You're a Wonder Woman. Great, thank you, Heidi. So the agenda, the learning objectives for today, we want you by the end of this hour, you will have more clarity about your finances and the financial world that you have created for yourself. You're going to be able to create some meaningful goals that align with what you want, either the next year, the next 5 years, the next 25 years. Develop a plan that fits those goals, figure out how to take small steps or take small bites so the finance world isn't quite as overwhelming or perhaps scary or unmanageable, and then to really be able to enjoy the money that you're making. So those just a few small goals to have happen, but we will do it in this hour. It's a wonderful session and workshop that we're doing today. So with that, I will hand it over to Heidi.
Thank you, Chris. Well, welcome to Amplify Your Financial Prowess. I am so glad to be able to spend some time with you this morning, or wherever you are in your time zone. I think we have a global audience, which I think is amazing. Today, we're going to learn some tips and strategies to help you take charge of your financial life and to learn and enjoy managing your money. So to set the stage a little bit, what is financial planning? There are 6 key subject areas that need to be addressed for financial planning to be comprehensive. However, don't get overwhelmed by this. Not all of them need to be done at once, and they're often addressed at different points in your life and your career. So today, we're going to focus on the foundation of financial planning, which is net worth and cash flow. Next slide. So our topics for today are really twofold. One is net worth, And the second is cash flow, which will include budget, savings, debt, and expenses. But before we get into the financial planning side of things, I'd like to take a few moments to pause and reflect on your money story. So everyone has a money story. It's shaped by your past experiences and what you've heard or been told about money. Your money story influences your beliefs and your behaviors throughout your life. And your money story is as unique as you are. So we're going to start with a little action right out of the gate here. So if everyone can grab a piece of paper and something to write with. I'm going to read some different phrases surrounding some different words. And I want you just to jot down whatever comes to your mind. So first word is scarcity. Did your friends have things you didn't have? Did your friends go on better vacations than you? Did your parents fight about money? And Chris, you can just start putting all the words up on the screen for me.
Sure.
Secretive. Was the subject of money taboo in your house? Did your parents never talk about money? Shame. Were you ashamed to bring friends to your house? Do you feel bad when you bought something you wanted? Did you feel like you were talked down to about money? Save. Were you forced to save all your money as a child? What's the biggest amount of money you saw as a child? Spend. Did you get to choose how to spend the money that you earned? Were you given an allowance? What was the first major purchase you made? Share. Were you given money for birthdays? Did your family give money to charity? Success. What did your parents tell you about money that made you feel good? How did you feel when you received your first paycheck? So take a few minutes to jot down your thoughts, your memories, your feelings. Clearly, this is something that you can spend more time on later. But for now, it might be helpful to finish the sentence. I grew up believing money. I'll give you just a few seconds to think about that. Okay, next slide, Chris.
Okay. I was still writing.
Oh, I know, I'm sure everyone's writing. This is
It's great.
an important topic.
Sure is.
And like I said, it's probably worth some self-exploration on your own later on today or over the weekend.
Good idea.
So like most people, thinking about money in response to those questions can bring up all kinds of emotion. And that's okay. And it's perfectly normal. It's the first step to understanding why you have the money story that you have. If you don't like your money story, the good news is that you can change it. Your money story can change. What you learned in the past about money may not be the story that you want guiding you as you move forward. So how can you create a new money story? First is be mindful. Listen to what you say. Notice what comes up when you buy something. Notice what you feel when you think about money in your financial life. Remember, you're not a victim. You can choose power and control over your money life. And the good news is you get to create your relationship with money. It is possible. Your financial life can be healthy, dynamic, exciting, and bring you happiness. You can learn to manage your finances through the basic principles of money management. Next slide. So let's begin. There are a lot of people who choose to just ignore their financial lives. Sometimes we don't look at our financial lives because we don't know where to start. We might feel ashamed. We might think that things are really bad. We might just not think we don't know enough. And sometimes we just get too busy. Shame overwhelm, fear, all play a part in our behavior. But here's the truth. The ostrich strategy won't get you where you want to go. You need to see the total picture. You can click, Chris, in order to make changes or good decisions. And then you can work towards making your money situation better. Next slide. So first, let's get clear. One of the most important things when we talk about money is to understand personal values. So what's important to you about money? If you had an initial thought, just jot it down. It's something you can noodle on, but it could be something like security. It could be something like freedom. We all have things that are important to us, and our values are very individual. Second is, what are your goals and dreams? Knowing what you want in life will help you set your financial plan. And a financial plan that's meaningful and exciting to you. Everyone has different goals and dreams, and everyone's going to have a different financial plan. It's important to know what you want so you can set the course to get there. Next slide. So this is an exercise. I have a handout available so you can do this on your own, but I'm just going to talk through it at a high level, because to do this properly actually takes some time and some thought. So again, I would encourage you to spend some time over the next couple days to complete this exercise or something similar to it. So this is a goals exercise that I use. And you can see that there's 5 major areas to reflect on: health, relationships, work, financial, and personal. Financial goals can't stand on their own. They need to be coordinated with your whole life. So we start at the wider view. In your life, what are your biggest goals in these categories? What do you want at the end of the day? What's most important to you? So you start with the lifetime goals, and then you back it up to a 3-year goal. In order to obtain the lifetime goal, what's my 3-year goal? What's my 1-year goal? And then I boil it down to, what am I going to get done in the next 3 months? So it really takes this very, very important life goal, and it brings it back to something that's doable in the next 3 months, in the next quarter. I typically do this every year on my birthday. I know a lot of people do goal planning in January. I get overwhelmed by that because there's enough going on. So I always sit on my birthday and do this. And then if I have a major life change in any of these 5 categories, it could be a raise, it could be the loss of a job, it could be a change in whatever it is. Rework the goals and reset what's important, especially in the short term. So be as specific as possible and write your goals down. Don't just think about them, write them down. Okay, next slide. So first things first, now we're going to switch into some financial topics. Let's talk about net worth. What is net worth? It is your assets, so it's everything you own, less your liabilities, everything you owe. So assets minus liabilities equal your net worth. Next slide. So here's a quick example of net worth. Basically, you can put all your assets on one side and your liabilities on the other. So in this case, you have your house, a 403b plan, savings account, checking account, and a car. And those assets add up to $394,000. On the other side, you have your liabilities. You have a mortgage on your home, you have a student loan, and you have a car loan. So your total liabilities are $315,000. So it's simple math. You take your assets, you minus your liabilities, and in this case, our net worth is $79,000. So with net worth, and I have a handout for this too that can help you calculate net worth, the most important thing to do is actually sit down and calculate it. People are always surprised and usually pleased when they calculate their net worth. Rarely do people pull everything together and look at it in one simple format on one page. After you calculate it, you can work to grow it simply by increasing assets and reducing liabilities. You want to move that in a positive direction. Your true measure of financial success is your net worth statement. It's not your income, it's your net worth statement. Next
So
slide.
these handouts, thank you. These handouts you should be able to access in your control panel there. There are 3 of them. They should be available to download easily. If not, just put a little chat and say, hey, I can't get them, and we'll make sure that they're uploaded to the Global Leadership League website, or I can email them to you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch to our second topic, budgeting. So a common order for budgeting is people pay their bills, and then they spend their money, and then do they save? Maybe, maybe not. But typically, there's no money left over. Next slide. So where do you begin? It can be overwhelming and sometimes scary to look at budgeting. But if you think about a budget as simply a plan for how you handle your money, it's not as overwhelming. And the simplest place to start is with your income. You need to know your total monthly income. Second, you need to know your monthly expenses. And I like to look at them in 3 main categories. 1, savings. 2, fixed expenses. And 3, variable spending. And we'll talk about these each in a few minutes. It's important to establish a budget to meet your goals, which could include, paying down student loan, saving for a house or a child's education, increasing your cash cushion, or saving more for retirement. The easiest way to start is to determine your savings goal and your fixed expenses. Then you know what's left over after that for buying everything that you want. So
Without guilt.
Without guilt, exactly. So the recommended order for budgeting would be figure out what you want to save. This includes your cash cushion, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and retirement savings. All your fixed expenses, which are the bills that you have to pay, paying down debt, and then what's left over is your variable spending, and it should be guilt-free about that. Okay, next slide. So here's a sample budget with someone who has $3,000 take-home pay. But let's talk a little bit about these different categories. So first is savings. So what savings is going to be any cash you save in the bank, your retirement accounts, if you have any other investment accounts that you use. Fixed expenses are items like your mortgage or your rent, utility bills, car payments, groceries. These are the items that you need to pay each month. And then the variable expenses are the things that you want. It's dining out, it's new shoes, it's going to the movie, it's a new phone, a cup of coffee, a glass of wine. So the goal would be to save 10% of your income. Next slide. So why save? First is to create a cash cushion or an emergency account. People should have 3 to 12 months of expenses saved. Second would be for your retirement. So someday you can stop doing your job if you choose to and pursue whatever you want to pursue. And third would be goals and dreams. Could be a second home. It could be, the vacation every year, world travel, whatever you're interested in. But whatever your dreams and goals are, that goes into that savings bucket. Next slide.
You're talking to a good group when you talk about world travel, let me tell you. That is a priority.
I'm often envious of several of you.
Right.
So cash cushion or emergency fund. When you build your cash cushion, you want to set a target amount. But how much is enough? And that's the question that I get a lot. Unfortunately, there's no one size fits all. The ideal amount for your emergency fund or your cash cushion may depend on your financial situation and lifestyle. So for example, if you own your own home and you provide for a number of dependents, you may be more likely to face financial emergencies. And if the crisis you could face would be a job loss or an injury, you may need to depend on those emergency funds for an extended period of time. So typically, people need between 3 and 12 months saved. So if saving several months of income seems an unreasonable goal, don't despair. Just start with a more modest target. So let's just say start with $1,000. So build your savings at a regular interval, a bit at a time. And consider setting up an automatic monthly transfer to make that self-discipline a matter of course. So keep your cash cushion or your emergency money separate from your checking and savings account so it's harder to dip into, and keep it liquid and accessible. I think having an emergency fund or that cash cushion may help alleviate the stress and worry associated with financial crisis. If your emergency savings are not where they should be, consider taking some steps today to start creating a cushion for the future. Next slide. So what about debt? The most important thing is to acknowledge it. We want to write it down. We want to put the balance, interest, minimum payments, term, and I'm sure a lot of you just stopped listening to me right there. So I've included another handout. It's a debt payoff tracker, and it has all the categories, and it'll make it really easy for you to list everything out and get it all organized. So get it all in one place so you can see it. Then accept it. It is what it is for whatever reason. And then forgive yourself if you're feeling badly about it. And if you have emotions, write them down. And then start setting intentions and create an action plan. Next slide. So debt, creating an action plan. Where to start? So first, by reviewing your budget. Look for places to decrease spending and other categories to allow more debt payment. So typically, what people do is they start trying to pay the maximum amount your budget can afford on the highest loan rate. So whatever loan has the highest rate, typically that's the one you're going to start with. So it could be $10 extra a month. You could double the payment. It's whatever your budget will allow. And then keep paying the minimum payments on all the other loans. When the highest rate loan is paid off, then start on the next highest rate and do what you can on that, but keep paying the minimums on your other loans, and so on. Be realistic and start with a reasonable amount. It doesn't do any good to create a budget that you can't stick with. And be willing to adjust your budget. You might go out of the gate and have a plan and then something happens, so be able to readjust if needed. And then most importantly, celebrate your successes. Next slide. Should I pay off my debt before I save? This is a really, really important question. First and foremost is, do you have cash? It is important to have a cash cushion. It might not be in the 3 to 12 month mark, but it's important to have cash and be building towards that cash cushion. Having a cash cushion while you pay down debt is important, because if you allocate all of your excess cash to paying down debt and something unexpected happens, you're right back in the same position of using some sort of debt instrument like a credit card that you were working so hard to pay off. So it is a balance. Secondly, how much is your debt costing you? So when you fill out that debt payoff tracker, you're going to see all the interest rates on your different loans. Second, is there a deduction related to your debt? So look at your interest payments, and does the potential investment exceed the cost of your debt? Typically, there aren't investments. They're going to pay a higher rate than what you're paying on a lot of the credit card and possibly student loan debts. Third consideration is if you have a 401k or a 403b through your employer, try to maximize your contribution to receive the entire employer match. This way you're going to be able to add to your retirement savings with free money. So you can see there is a balance, but most importantly, it's important to have that cash cushion or emergency savings. But there are other considerations too. Again, financial planning is very personal, and it depends on your individual circumstances. Next slide. So what if it's not enough? There are really three choices. One, You can move more money from your variable. Secondly, you can cut expenses. Or third, you can make more money, which I think we could do a whole seminar just on that. Next slide.
Yeah, let's go. Negotiation, another negotiation webinar. Let's do it.
So let's just focus on one of those categories right now. Let's focus on cutting expenses. And again, I don't want people to blow up their lifestyle or become resentful because they've created this budget and it makes them angry and they can't do the things they want to do. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to start being really mindful about what's important to you and where your money's going. So a couple things to keep in mind. One is bargain shopping and its expensive cousin, impulse buying. I think that flash sales and impulse buying, such as products easily online, they're easily shippable. We have wonderful retail opportunities in our consumeristic society where we're really driven to purchase things, and they can be huge money wasters. And it's really made worse by how often these items sometimes sit idly in a closet or a drawer, or end up taking them to Goodwill or another charity. So be mindful of that shopping. Second place to look is unused memberships and subscriptions. So sometimes they're automatically taken out of your account and you've forgotten or you haven't taken the time to cancel them. But they'd be things like a gym membership. If you really use it, then awesome. If you don't, then cancel it. Other things could be Netflix, which I know is the lifeblood of a lot of people. Audible, iTunes, there's all sorts of things that are automatically, we sign up and they're automatically taken out of our accounts. So be mindful and review those and keep the ones that you use and get rid of the ones that you do not. Cable and cell. Call your provider and see if it's possible to negotiate a new rate. They might do it. Call cable companies. Make sure you're not paying for things that you're not using, and maybe they'll be able to bundle things to save you money as well. Paying for water. Perhaps consider purchasing a reusable container and using that during the day instead. Coffee can be expensive. Some people that they're never giving it up, and I understand it, but it's just another place to look at your budget and consider brewing your coffee at home. And then, of course, eating out. Next slide. So let's look at some expenses because it really does all add up. This assumes 52 weeks in a year, and I just chose 3 simple examples. So one is eating out. So again, I'm not asking for clients or people to give up everything that they do because we need to enjoy our lives. So let's say you just spend 60 bucks a week on lunch. What if you save 20 of that? So either you don't go out every day or you don't buy as expensive of a lunch. Let's say you save $20 a week. That's over $1,000 a year and $5,200 over 5 years. Same thing with Target. So Target is a big box store here in our region of the United States. So it could be your Walmart or whatever big box store you may frequent. So let's say you spend $200 a month. What if you just save $25? What if you put something back on the end cap? What if you put back the lamp, the rug, whatever that you didn't really need? Annually, that's $300, $1,500 over 5 years. And again, when we talked about memberships, here's an example, $15 a month. Oh, I forgot about it. I've been paying it for last year. Need to cancel it. That's $180 a year. So over the course of the year, making these 3 small steps would save you $1,500. And over the course of 5 years, $7,600. If you actually invested this money, and I just use a very simple interest calculation using 5%, it would be about $8,300 over 5 years. So can you think of a financial goal where an extra $1,500 this year or $7,600 over 5 years could make an impact? Next slide. So savings tips. The first payment each month is to you. It is to your savings. It is to your retirement. And make it automatic. Our retirement plans typically flow out of our paychecks. That's great. Make it automatic. Might think about stepping it up a little bit. Make it automatic from checking to savings when your paycheck comes in, so it goes automatically over to your savings account. Put your financial future first. And look at savings as a long-term commitment rather than a short-term challenge. Next slide. One way to keep your financial picture front and center is to set a money date. So what's a money date? A money date is a designated time to focus on your finances. So what do you do during a money date? One, you're going to create your net worth statement and you'll update it. Some people update it monthly, some people update it quarterly. So you're going to update your retirement savings and hopefully your loan reduction. Could be how you're paying down your mortgage, your student loans, paying off credit cards. So that liability column should go down while your assets increase as you add to retirement and other savings. You're going to review your budget and your expenses to make sure you're on track and to make adjustments if needed. So a money date helps you get honest and clear about your expenses and your income and your net worth. It can be hard to start. It's a little like working out. It's difficult to start, and then once you get going, it becomes part of your life and you need it. It becomes part of your routine. So one thing you could do is to create a space and a ritual. Perhaps you make your favorite cup of coffee and carve out a half an hour on a Saturday morning before the rest of the house wakes up. Or perhaps it's a cup of tea and a candle on a Wednesday evening. And start by making it pleasant. But the most important thing is to start. Because when you begin to look, and when you get honest, and when you get clear, you start to gain confidence. All right, next slide. So 4 things to keep in mind as you take charge of your financial life. 1 is be aware of your money story. 2, calculate your net worth. It is your true measure of financial success. 3, know your budget and make adjustments. And probably most importantly is that you can make the changes that you want in your life. Next slide. So what are some ways that you can take charge? First, write out your goals. If you want to use the handout I've provided, use that. If you have your other favorite way of doing it, do it. But write out your goals, make them specific, and make them meaningful to you. They're your goals, they're no one else's goals. Secondly, spend some time to create your net worth statement. Again, I've provided a worksheet to help you with that. Again, it's all your assets minus your liabilities. Third, know your budget. Figure out what your fixed expenses are, figure out what your savings goals are, and then the remainder is variable savings. People get tripped up on the variable because they try to track every shoe, glass of wine, meal out, piece of clothing purchased, and it gets overwhelmed. So if you want to do that, you can, but to simplify it out of the gate, fixed expenses, know what they are, savings goals, and then everything else you can put in the variable bucket. Then make adjustments. When you sit down monthly or quarterly or whenever you choose to have your money date, make adjustments. Remember to take small steps. So this weekend, hopefully when you all sit down and start going over this information, be realistic, take small steps. They will help. And set an ongoing money date. It's important to have a continuous eye to your financial life. It's not look at it once and put it away. It's not, oh, I made a budget and then, oh, shoot, I forgot to look at it and it's a year later. So be rigorous with this if you want to make changes. Like I said, monthly, quarterly, whatever works best for you. And then celebrate your successes, because if you do this, you will have successes. So remember, personal financial planning, we're going to have to know values. Values are specific to you. They're important to you. They're what makes your life meaningful. They're what lights you up. From your values, you set goals. What's most important? What are your dreams? Why is money important to you? So spend some time on those 5 categories, because your financial life is integrated with everything else that's important to you. It can't stand alone. And then choose some action steps where you can start making progress in the areas that are important to you. And then you'll start seeing your desired results. And finally, a couple things to keep in mind as you start down this path. First is that growing your net worth and developing a budget that works for you is going to take some time. So be patient. Ask questions if you have them. And most importantly, be kind to yourself as you go through this process. And secondly, taking small steps for continuous improvement can make a dramatic and lasting impact on your life. So I hope you've all found a few nuggets that you can use and implement in your financial life. And I appreciate your attention and for your time and your attention. And I wish you the very best on your financial journey.
Thank you. That was such a clear way of talking about such a complex subject. Thank you so much for that. So I have one question. So anybody, if you want to put questions in the box, I'll make sure that we ask Heidi them. The first question is, I have a 0 interest rate credit card that has to be paid by a particular date, or I accrue interest for the total balance I transfer to it. I have another credit card with a high interest rate. Which one should I pay first?
Oh, well, so you want to make sure that you pay that 0 interest rate on time. Otherwise, it's not worth the 0 interest rate. So you probably want to make minimum payments there, so that you don't get caught having to do that lump sum at the end, unless you're putting those payments in a bank and plan to make your lump sum. And then with a higher interest rate loan, I would start putting a little more extra towards that. So don't get caught with the 0 interest rate, not making those payments. Otherwise, it'll be as if you didn't have a 0 interest rate, but work on the higher rate as well.
Great advice. Next question is, what should we do with tens of thousands of dollars in savings? I want to make my money work for me. That's a great position to be in.
It is. Congratulations on your savings. So, I mean, there's so many different financial products that you could use to make money. When people come to me and say, I want to make more on my money, yes, and you need to have that cash cushion or emergency fund in place. And only you know how much that is. There's money markets. I know they're paying 0 point nothing right now. Sometimes banks will run a special where you can get a little more interest, but you don't want to lock up your cash cushion, your emergency fund, in any sort of investment that either is illiquid or is in the market, where if you need it and the market's down, you can't get back what you need out of it at point in time. So above and beyond what you need for your cash cushion, I can't give you individual advice, but there's anything from managed money accounts to annuities to certificates of deposit. So there's a lot of different vehicles you can use to make money. I would probably do a little research online, or you can talk to several different financial advisors and get their opinion in your local market and see who's interesting, who you might trust, and you'll get a lot of good information.
Are those financial advisors usually willing to take a phone call or meeting for free, Heidi, for a first time?
Yeah, most are. Most are, but I would do a little research before you just pick up the phone and call. Talk to friends and family, look at who's active in the marketplace, look at what people might have for experience. designations, things like that.
Designations meaning sort of credentials that say, oh, they're trustworthy.
Correct, or theoretically trustworthy. A designation, I mean, everyone knows designations in and of themselves, are meaningless. They mean that you've done the extra education and you've gotten some sort of certification. But that's a place to start because someone's put some effort into work into their career. But talk around in your community and see who people work with, and you'll probably get some really interesting people to talk with.
Nice. Next question is, I haven't made a will yet. What's the best process to get this done? Do I have to work with an attorney? Can I do it online? Any advice is appreciated.
Yes, it depends on your individual situation again. So if your situation is relatively simple and your assets are straightforward and you don't have children, then yes, you can go online and you can probably find a template or a company where you can do it yourself. If you have property in different states, if you have minor children, then you probably want to sit down and talk with an attorney. Some attorneys are going to charge you hourly. Some have a flat rate fee for wills or for what's called a revocable trust. So it's a trust you set up in your lifetime and you put assets into it. It sounds complicated. It's not. And it's actually a good way to manage your estate. It makes it easier for everyone involved. But a good attorney, you're going to sit down with them for a couple hours. It's actually quite complicated to go through and make all the decisions that you need to make about potentially who would take care of your children, who is going to be involved in your end of life decisions, who you would let manage your financial life if you become disabled in your life, and then who you want to be the executor or the personal representative of your estate and make sure that all your wishes are carried out.
Great. And I think there's also opportunities state by state, right? Like certain things, depending on your financial situation, you can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
So next question, for a mortgage loan, is it better to make earlier payments or invest that money elsewhere?
I think, again, it depends on your individual situation. It depends how large your mortgage is. Depends what your interest rate is on your mortgage. Some people don't like debt, and so they're going to make those extra payments because they don't want to carry a mortgage. Mortgage interest can be deductible, so that's another consideration. You have to look at what you're paying on your mortgage in terms of interest and seeing if you could make more than that in the market. So I work with clients one-on-one on that. It really depends on, again, values, what's important to you, and your individual circumstance.
When you say the mortgage, the interest rate is deductible, you mean for tax purposes?
Correct.
Got it. So looking at that.
Yep.
All righty. Next question. Hang on, this one's a long one. I gotta expand my view. All right, that's great. We're getting great questions in here. All right, my partner's really good with money and saving, so I've learned a lot from him, and I've adapted from my parents' attitude, which was to flippantly spend. Oh no. Now we're saving, but why? We bring more money in now than ever, but it feels empty to be saving with no goal in mind. Although I recognize that this is probably a good problem to have. Any advice on how to reframe?
I love that.
Mm.
So I think I would start with maybe the goals exercise. Maybe you and your partner sit down independently and work on that goals exercise, and then come together and have a really good conversation, because I think that sounds like you might need to better understand perhaps values and or goals and some money story behind that too. I think money story plays into that in a major way. From there, you can have conversations about what's important and hopefully find a compromise on saving versus maybe spending a little bit for some increased enjoyment in the current life. daily life with the eye to managing for financial crisis, planning for retirement, those types of things. So it would be fun perhaps to sit down, independently do the goals exercise, and then sit and come together as a couple and talk about money story too.
Mm-hmm. And values. Sounds like that
Absolutely.
would be a great conversation over a glass of wine, right?
Yeah, and sometimes people, I've had couples do this on even risk tolerance before we invest their money. And they're often surprised at the differences when they sit independently and then you come together and you want to create the environment. You want to even, I would suggest designing an alliance up front where you kind of set the boundaries for how the conversation is going to go. Because money can be a really difficult thing to talk about. So you could say, we're going to share. Maybe nobody does any critique. We can ask questions, and maybe we go away for a while and we come back again with questions or concerns. But make sure that you have a framework for this discussion and something that you agree to before you start talking, so that both people are honored and valued in the conversation.
It's great advice. Thank you. Next question is, what is your suggestion for income-based repayment plans with student loans? My minimum repayment is $0 a month, but my debt is still sitting there and obviously isn't decreasing.
Right. I think that those are wonderful for circumstances. And it can kind of take the monkey off your back, so to speak, temporarily. I would advise making the minimum payment and not just the interest payment. I had a client come in and they didn't realize they had this very similar situation. They were only making the interest, or the only making the, not even the whole interest payment. So actually their loan was increasing because they weren't paying down the principal. They weren't with that income base. They gave them a number. So your interest doesn't stop. Typically, I don't know your debt exactly, but that's what I would keep an eye to. Just because they say you don't have to, if you can, I would work on making some sort of payment to that loan.
Mm. Okay. Next question. I still have grad school loans and I'm on the PSLF repayment program. Although the loans have a high interest rate, I haven't been paying off more than I should, as I'm hoping and planning that in 4 years I will still be working for a qualifying organization and the rest of the loans will be forgiven. Whatever is not paid after 10 years in the program will be paid for by the government. It's a bit of a gamble, especially in today's political climate. Do you have any advice? Should I be paying off more in the worst case scenario in mind, like the changing jobs or the government gets rid of the program?
So I will say unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that program at all. I think, this is a situation that makes me think that we all need a crystal ball.
Yeah, right.
Because it's hard to plan for those huge contingencies. I mean, will you stay? Will you go? Will the government keep it? Will it not? So you don't want to. I get you don't want to pay more than you have to. At the same time, you don't want to be left holding the bag. I don't. I Here again, I think it's very personal. It depends if you, in your heart of hearts, if you sit there and it's almost a gut check thing. I would think if you can take that gamble or not. Because clearly if you went without paying it and everything worked out perfectly and it was forgiven, then that's better financially. But on the flip side, if something happens and you're left holding that debt, then you're going to wish you would have made payments. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I would really just sit with it as an individual, think about your values and use your gut check on that, because it's a situation where you're trying to predict the future and you can't.
Yeah. We really do need a crystal ball, don't we?
Well, if we had that, none of us would probably be sitting here.
On this webinar. Sure, we would. Right. We like conversation.
We'd all be at our vacation homes in the Bahamas or
something. Right. Do you have any advice for women at particular ages or resources, depending sort of on where they are in their financial planning stage of what they should be thinking about or going to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I alluded to at the beginning that there's a lot of different phases of financial planning. And I think as women progress through one, their life, and two, their career, it's going to ebb and flow through those six categories. So absolutely, depending upon where you are in your career, how close to retirement you are, what your circumstances are, what your income, yeah, absolutely. There's different things. I can't, lay out A to Z right now, but that's something that if you have a specific target or something, we could, put together a seminar that's focused on different, phases of career or different
Mm,
situations where we really can focus a little bit more on the needs of a certain demographic.
great. There will be a survey at the end of this webinar, so that's a place where you can put in your ideas and next questions or webinar topics that might be interesting to you. Question, have you heard of betterment.com? It looks like they've got options to invest in public markets without a financial advisor fee.
Right. I heard of them. I'm not familiar with them. Yes, there are quite a few online platforms that allow you to manage your own money, set your risk tolerance, choose your portfolio. It's usually pretty turnkey, and it's usually less expensive than working with a financial advisor.
Great. And the last question before I tell you about some upcoming Global Leadership League events, financially related and otherwise, is a house truly an investment?
Well, okay, I'm going to circle back and say that renting versus owning, there are financial aspects to that. But here again, I'm going to back the conversation up because it really goes back to values. For some people, owning a home is the most important thing. Creating a home, having a family in that home, coming home to that home, being in that home for years and years and years, that's core to their values. Other people, it's not. And so it depends. So is a home worth it? Well, we went through 2008, so we can all say, maybe not. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can never predict what's going to happen with the market. I think it's also driven by which area you live in, the economic conditions there, where the market is now, the interest rate you can get on a mortgage. So there's lots of variables. So is it always the best financial decision? No, it's not. Can it be? Absolutely. If you hold a home over a long period of time, typically they say that home values, so if we do projections in a financial plan, we're going to project a home value increasing on average 2% a year. So it's not a huge, it's not an asset that's going to grow perhaps like a retirement plan or something like that. But it is an asset that's probably more values based, especially with the changes in the United States tax law. So that's where I would come down on that.
Thank you. And one person had a comment that she uses mint.com for budgeting. It's related to TurboTax, and she's found it really user-friendly. So just a tip from the audience of a tool that they found easy to use. I use Mint too. It's an app on the phone. It's super easy. So last but not least, we get into some resources coming up. League members at the Forum on Education Abroad, we talked about, wow, we could really talk about making more money, right? Well, the Art of Negotiation is a workshop. Our own Cynthia Banks and another financial planning person are going to be putting that on March 26th. So that's before the Forum conference in Denver. If you're going, check it out on the League website, go to globalleadershipleague.com. There's also a link up, so just a social gathering there at that same conference. We also are at API in beautiful Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So if you're there, check that event out. We also have a panel talk in London. We also are at the 2 upcoming Teradata and NAFSA conferences with reception. So we're trying to get out there And again, put any suggestions or comments. Do fill out the survey after this webinar. It gives Heidi and it gives me and the league your feedback so we know what kind of webinars you would like delivered to you. And I just wanted to say a hearty thank you, Heidi, for such an informative and powerful presentation. Thank you for donating your expertise to the league. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity so much.
All right. Well, thank you. This concludes our Amplify Your Financial Prowess webinar. Hope you've enjoyed it and have a wonderful day, everyone.